my red light isn't staying on for my mic.
Try the other button. There you go.
Oh. Oh, okay, I was muting everyone. All right. Sorry. All right, that's being recorded. All right, that's good. All right, everyone, welcome to the December 18th EAC meeting for Radnor Township. We have, unfortunately, a smaller than necessary for a quorum membership attendance, but there are still some issues I want to share with all of you. So first of all, let's, for those three members present, is there been approval of the minutes that you, from the previous November 20th meeting?
Yes.
Approved, thank you. And public comment. Anjana, would you like to come forward up to the mic and touch the right button with the face? Maybe you don't have one. Just test your mic to make sure it's working.
Here?
Yeah, just touch the mic.
Hear me?
Yeah, okay, it's active. Okay. So, Anjana Vidyadharan
Vidyadharan.
would like to speak about a seed library proposal for the township.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Can you hear me? Well, yeah. So thank you for letting me do this today. I really appreciate how much the EAC has been doing for us residents here. My yard was awarded the eco-friendly yard for increasing biodiversity and avoiding the use of chemicals on our property. And I came to know the efforts of EAC in increasing the amount of pollinator-friendly and native plants. And with the native plant and tree giveaway, that is a wonderful service that our township and EAC are providing. When we go out to the, when we search for native plants out for purchase, they're pretty expensive. And when you plant the native plants or other pollinator-friendly plants in our yards, you have to plant them in a large quantity, not just one or two here and there. You need to have a bunch of plants grouped together so as to attract these pollinators. It doesn't come cheap. It's pretty expensive. And EAC has been doing a very useful initiative for us residents and providing the plants for free. When it comes to seeds, when you want to grow plants in a large quantity from seeds, that also doesn't come easy. It's hard to, you don't see them in the stores. You don't see native plants that are really like out there in our area. They're not represented in the seed packets. You can't just go somewhere and take the seeds. You need to have some resources. And I came across a seed library at the Easttown Library, which is our neighbor just across the border from Radnor. And that is, they have a seed library where residents can give seeds. You just give away your extra seeds and you can take them as well. And it's apparently managed by their EAC, Easttown Township EAC. I first thought about giving my extra seeds to them. I collect seeds from my own plants, but then I thought of approaching our Radnor library to see if we can have that service in our township. So I emailed the Radnor Memorial Library just a few days ago, and I copied EAC. And Dan right away responded with great enthusiasm. And the library is also supportive of the idea. They also said they have been thinking about this for a while. So I think that would happen. They're interested. It has to be a small counter where some seats, it's just a place for people to leave seats and take. It's not much of a hassle. It doesn't have any expense involved. It just has to be a corner or a stand or just a small space. I think that should work out with the Radnor Memorial Library.
So, the number of seedlings
Yes.
you would envision the
Yes.
the seed library to have, how many
Yeah.
would you think?
So this is just for people to kind of take seeds and give seeds. That's just a place for the seeds. And I also, on the email, I also suggested an idea of a garden club where we could, learn how to grow from the seeds.
Yes.
So if we have surplus seeds, we can grow more and more plants from these seeds, right? And growing native perennials from seed, it just needs to be done in a certain way. Most plants need cold stratification for germination. They need to be outdoors for 60 to 90 days, exposed to the winter for the seeds to break the dormancy. They are not easy to be grown indoors or in greenhouses. But so I wanted to try this. I wanted to grow more plants, and I did my own research, and I found this method of growing plants in our small spaces. So this is winter sowing method. It's not uncommon. A lot of people use it now. You grow plants in containers and leave them outside, where if you just sow the seeds outside directly in the soil, they can get eaten by birds or the critters, and they have to compete with other plants around to germinate and push themselves through. So we help these seedlings in the initial stage, the seeds and the seedlings, by giving them a protected environment. But at the same time, they get exposure to the cold climate, the wind, the air, the snow, rain, all of the factors, and they need sunlight.
So you are proposing
Yeah.
to you provide packets of seeds to Radnor Memorial Library for
Yeah.
residents to pick up and plant themselves?
I have surplus. I can do that. Anybody can do that. It's not just me.
It's literally like a lending library.
Exactly.
Some you take some.
Exactly.
So it's going to require a communication plan
Yes.
Right.
and education
Yes.
to educate
Yes.
and communicate, about, it's like lending libraries that you see in people's
Yes.
yards. They have the little box with the books and things, take one, give one kind of thing. So,
Okay.
Yes.
But that would be a great topic for one of our articles, too. We're
Yeah, I
starting
was
this
thinking.
lending library, and
Yes.
hear the facts of how you do it, and, whatever, bring some, drop some off, take some. When does this mostly happen? Sort of in the spring? That's the height of this?
We could the library, they are meeting with us in January, the beginning of January. And the seed library, like I said, it's just a matter of time when they're ready, when they have a place ready, that will be open. And for growing these seeds and getting them to be established native perennials by next spring, this is the ideal time. We have to do it now during the December-February timeframe, so that we still allow 60 days minimum before the seed germination time, which is the end of March or beginning of April.
So Radnor Library is voting on this to confirm it, yay or nay, in
Yes.
January?
Yes, that's
Okay.
about the seed library.
and Johnny set up an appointment with,
Speak in the mic.
set up an appointment with the head librarian.
Yes.
In
At-
January that we're
yes.
supposed to. And I said I would go with her
Oh,
to
Yes.
present the whole, so
Okay.
we're
Yeah.
at the very beginning stages.
Yes.
of
Right.
trying
But
to
then
get
we'd
this-
want, if we want to do it this year, we'd want to jump on it right away after that January meeting, so people could start to prepare their seats,
Yes.
right? You and other people.
Yes. And it doesn't have to be the seed library. We can even start without the library being set up.
Yeah.
I have extra seeds. I'm sure there are plenty of people who have seeds in their yard. You just have to collect them. And so another idea that I had was getting a garden club initiated, so we can, interested residents can meet together, possibly at the library, just to have a common space and talk about ideas and maybe do some projects together, do some workshops. But apparently, it already exists. There is a garden club that exists, and they meet at the Radnor Memorial Library every month. And I approached them. I was given the contact from the library. So I reached out, and they already have their agenda planned. It may or may not happen. They're still looking into it if we can have this set up. Now it's the holiday time. People are busy. So until the end of this year, I think it's hard to get people involved. But if we can, it is, I find it a nice winter break activity when after the holidays, you get some winding down time. It is
Right.
something we can possibly do, or else January should be fine.
Right, and John,
Yes.
you offered to ask Radnor Memorial Library for a January 8th meeting instead of January 15th.
We
So-
could ask the.
So it wouldn't coincide with our EAC meeting. Is that
Yes.
right? So
I can ask.
if you
yes.
could ask them, and CC certainly Carol,
Yes,
Jane,
I
and
can do that.
myself.
Wait, so the meeting is, I just want to make sure it's on my calendar.
Well, she's asking for January 8th, because that was the other date that the librarian offered.
It would depend on the time. I usually work on the, on Wednesdays.
Okay.
So what was the other option?
They gave the time. Joyce Platford, she's the chief of the library affairs, so she mentioned January 8th and 15th as the potential dates, and she later emailed me with the date of 15th and the time is 5:30. She
15th?
proposed that, and I said
That's our EAC meeting.
we can
Oh.
keep it tentatively. So we,
Are you available the 8th?
Well, it depends, what time would it be on the 8th?
5:30.
Oh, yeah, I could do that.
I can ask.
I could do 5:30 on the 8th.
Okay,
So would you just get back to me if that's,
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I can do that.
And we'll go from there.
Yes.
The whole idea of the garden club is fascinating.
Yes, And like I said about the garden club, it already exists. I'm not sure how much of interest will be there about this project. So about the project, it is, I have done it over last 2 years. Like, I just started 2 years ago. I have grown hundreds of native perennials in my home.
Wow.
It's very easy to do if you do it that way, and you get strong seedlings that are resilient.
You give a
I don't-
tutorial on harvesting the seeds from the plants at the right time. That could also be
Yes,
useful.
maybe at our plant giveaway,
yes,
we could have a
What-
table with Anjan
Yes,
there
yes.
demonstrating and maybe even providing some seeds. When we do our
Right.
annual native plant giveaway, you could have an area set up
Yes.
yeah.
showing people
And-
how to germinate this and give them a couple, a
And
seed
even some
packet.
seedlings if we've got
Yeah,
that far.
yes, we are sure, to get them. Yeah, so,
So
I'll follow
My
up.
husband, he just joined us, Sujit. He's a professor of environmental sciences at Temple University,
Oh,
and he has a NSF-funded project going on in Temple University Ambler campus. So this spring, I grew the seedlings, and he took some of them to put in their research site. So they grew, the project is about studying agricultural crops under solar panels. They implemented solar panels, and they are growing vegetables underneath, and they also put some flowering plants to attract pollinators. So he took my plants, the native perennials. The result was amazing. It was,
okay.
yeah, the
Thank you,
pollinators.
Anjana.
Yeah.
I think it sounds like a great idea. I think it sounds like great community networking and outreach, something fun, something new, and
Yes.
it sounds. Would you, when, if it comes to fruition, would you write a,
Yes.
just a short article for us to put in some of our websites? And great.
Yeah.
How to do it, what the background is. I mean,
Yes.
no big tome, but just, just a
Yeah,
couple paragraphs.
we can do that.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's
Yeah,
exciting.
sure. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening. I'm Roberta Winters. I live in 326 Williams Road. And I noticed on the agenda there were two items which I have some interest in addressing. I'm speaking as an individual and not as for the League of Women Voters. The first item under new business that I saw was the Aronimink Golf Club clear cutting of the 9 acres of forest. And as you know, water is important, and it's an important part of our sustainability for the future. And many organizations are concerned about this, and I think that's important that the EAC raise many questions about this in terms of its impact on stormwater and its impact further downstream, because I believe there are areas that have some significant environmental issues related to this kind of work. We know we're all planting trees to clean the air. That's a loss in that regard. There are other questions in terms of the scope of the work, the purpose of the removal of all these trees, and also in terms of its, for example, just the replanting of the new trees, I think will require something like 2 feet of topsoil for each tree that's planted, as well as the fill that will need to be involved that will have to be free of all toxics. So it's a really big issue. It affects all of Delaware County, and I think it's important that the EAC take a stand. I believe the proposal has not yet, is going back to the county,
Right.
and they will be making further considerations. But I think at that county level, it's also important that you take a stand either in writing or in person, because usually your voice is important.
Thank you.
The second thing I wanted to mention, and I think you probably received a letter from me, or at least some of you, about the rain garden in Clemmer-Crone Park that was basically removed. There was a rain garden at the entrance of Clemmer-Crone Park, right by the driveway, that was built by the community, that involved Villanova University, the Boy Scouts, the League of Women Voters, Citizen Border Network. There was a lot of community involvement in that. And in the process of planting trees, it was deemed to be unsightly, but it was doing its job. You know, rain gardens aren't beautiful. So the bottom line is that rain garden was destroyed. It's been filled in, and a couple of saplings are planted there. The purpose of that rain garden was specifically to take the runoff from the parking lot that also included sometimes oil and salt and other things, and keep it out of the creek. That's no longer possible. The other thing that concerns me is that I am not a hydrologist. I was not digging in that rain garden, but I do know how it was built. And there were significant signage there, too, which spoke to how the rain garden worked, which was an educational purpose for the rest of the community, because in Clem-McCrone Park, you may or may not know, there were 2 rain gardens built when it was renovated. And based on my observation, and I'm not an engineer, that those rain gardens did not do what they were supposed to do. So I think that sometimes people, when they build rain gardens, not only have to make sure they do the job, but also maintained. I've been at many, I forget what whether it's the planning board or the zoning hearing board, where there are developments going in, and there are problems with stormwater issues. And rain gardens are often used as a alternative to mitigate the problems. And they may have been mitigated at one point in time, but that may have been 10 or 15 years ago. Is anybody checking on those rain gardens to see if, in fact, they're fulfilling the function that they were assigned to do in order for the development to occur? Also, rain barrels, I believe, were put into those plans. Are those rain barrels still there? How are they operating at this point in time? So I think good intentions sometimes run amok. And I'm really pleased that I see on the agenda that you have many educational programs there for the public. And I think that's important. However, I think it's also important to set a good example. So I would advise that the EAC may wish to work with the township to educate those workers in our community who do things such as mow the grass where they shouldn't in riparian buffers, plant trees in the riparian buffers that probably don't belong there, and also oversee the sustainability of what we have now and keep it that way. I don't, I'm not a police person, but I do observe things. And the signs, for example, along the creek in Clem-McCrone Park that said, do not mow, they're not there anymore, and they're mowed. Those things happen. So I think it's important that those people who do the jobs, and they do a fine job, understand that some things that don't look nice may actually be serving a very important purpose. So I implore you to educate, work with our township, make a difference so we don't waste our time and effort redoing what was done. Any questions? Thank you, that's all I want to say. But I know you have a big job to do, and I wish you well. And I hope I understand further about, rain gardens, and people need to understand their purpose and not destroy them.
Mr. Winters, could I ask you to advise us as who could educate our Public Works Department on these matters?
Mr. Chairman, if I could jump in for just a minute, I just wanted to make sure Ms. Winters knew that I was here to give a presentation tonight on this, just so you're
good.
aware.
Yeah, I saw that was on the agenda under
Absolutely.
new business, but I would think, there is a Sustainability Commission in Delaware County.
Mm-hmm.
They may have staff that can help you with that.
Okay.
And I know it's not ill intention on people's part, but I mean, if I see a weed, I pull it up. It may be one of those beautiful perennial plants that she wants to plant because they're going to do a great service and grow under solar panels. But unless I know that, I may do something reckless.
Okay. Yep.
Tammy, I'm sorry, I will watch and wait.
No, that's okay. I am going to comment a lot on the maintenance, not only just kind of backtrack a little bit on the history of the rain gardens themselves.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure Ms. Winters knew that I was here for that.
That'll be towards the end of the agenda.
Thank you.
Under maintenance of rain gardens.
I appreciate your time
Okay.
and understanding. Thank you, Tammy.
Under announcements, there's December 13th Radnor Weekly e-newsletter that in fact offers a virtual tour of the Republic Services recycling facility in King of Prussia. We had been discussing the potential of an actual on-site visit to the facility, but we have not gotten much response about that. So this virtual tour link will be provided in the minutes to this meeting for those interested in seeing what goes on at that MRF. Ongoing business regarding our municipal energy conservation and electrification. No updates regarding energy use benchmarking or electric vehicle charging stations, building energy system upgrades, or LED street installations. There will be an update likely next month. Mulchless native perennial plantings, back to perennials. Last month, Sven Dethlefs, who's been very active in promoting the planting of perennials on township property, actually proposed that the township provide funds for purchase of 2,000 plant plugs that would be then available for the community to pick up and plant themselves. And thanks to our liaison with the Board of Commissioners, Kathy Agnew, she has secured $4,000 for the purchase of 2,000 plant plugs. Unfortunately, the EAC quorum isn't reached with this attendance, so we can't formally vote on this proposal of Sven's, but I don't expect any resistance.
So Dan, is this 4,000 on top of our?
Yes.
30? Oh, okay.
Yes, it is. Yep.
Oh, I didn't know he got that.
Yes, she sent an email December 10th, or maybe it was a text to me, that at the township meeting she was notified that this was awarded to us. So I presume we should formally vote on Sven's proposal as an EAC, and then if approved, then we would contact the supplier for the plant plugs and arrange for their purchase so that they are available for our May plant giveaway.
So I'm confused. We're going to get 2,000 more plant plugs on top of what we were already going to order?
No, we never had the money to. Well, we could purchase the plants that we normally do,
Right.
which is about $500. But on top of that, we could also have the plant plugs available. And
But
with-
that's what we're giving away anyway, is plant plugs, right?
Right,
Okay. So
But-
we're just increasing the number of plants that we're going to be giving away.
right. And he's proposing that there be 12 plugs awarded to each family so that you have sufficient number of plants to start in maybe a square yard area. So that comes up to a few hundred families. So we can talk about this later at the next meeting and vote on it. We would definitely need a good notification of the public for this, because we'd be blessed with many plants to give away to the community. Public education, the EAC lecture series. 3 lectures have been lined up. Michael Wielbacher will be back to talk about climate change in the Delaware Valley on April 29th at 6 p.m. And Mike Craney of Willistown Conservation Trust will speak about native plants and meadows, creating a habitat at home. That'll be on March 25th at 6 p.m. And Good Things Come in Trees. The benefits of a neighborhood canopy will be presented by Villanova professor Jen Santoro on March 19th at 7 p.m. It's 7 p.m. because it'll follow our EAC meeting that Wednesday night. We also have several lectures planned. Aqua PA, Director of Water Quality and Environmental Compliance, will talk about water treatment, which I think is for our drinking water, which is very topical these days, what measures they have taken to make our water safe. Laura Luker will arrange for Radnor Birdtown to give a lecture on the variety of birds in our area and their welfare. I'd also would like to ask Rebecca Yurkovich if she's available from the Delco Office of Sustainability to present a summary of the Delco Sustainability Plan. I've yet to contact her about that. Practical Energy Solutions, the firm that is proposing designs to our municipal buildings to improve energy efficiency and actual renewable energy upgrades, is available to speak about their efforts in this area, perhaps not just with Radnor Township, but with other townships where these upgrades have been implemented, and there is a comparison before and after the upgrades on energy consumption. Lastly, I would like to see if Radnor Parks and Rec could talk about further about their efforts in our township about maintaining our waterways, particularly the condition of Fenimore Pond, which they remedied from a highly eutrophic condition in the past 4 months. If Parks and Rec will be involved in maintaining the remaining 6 rain gardens with township residents. And we may get a preliminary understanding of the impact of tree clearing at Aronimink Golf Club on Darby Creek and the risk of sediment runoff. Lastly, I would like to arrange for the Department of Public Works and the Engineering Department to summarize the efforts that they have accomplished and planned for stormwater management in our township. This is clearly a very important area that is getting more and more urgent as our climate is getting more dramatic with its rainfall. Let's see. Eugenia, could you update us about the Radnor News Community Newsletter and Suburban Life publications?
Sure. So in an effort to get the word out in a wider area about this lecture series that we're having, because they really are very good lectures on a very wide variety of environmental issues that really impact all of us, no matter where you live. I have contacted a number of organizations to list our lectures. I mean, not everybody is going to go to a website and think, I wonder what's going on this month. So you will start to see with regularity, now that we're lining them up a little further in advance, it'll be listed in the Radnor magazine, which comes out quarterly, Suburban Life magazine, which comes out, I think, every month. It's a little weird in December, but I think every month. Also, Willistown Trust and the Radnor Conservancy and the EAC in Tredyffrin and some other places in media, conservation places, I've asked them to put our calendar on their websites.
Thank you.
So
That's great.
And there'll be more of those. I think I'm going to ask Jenkins and Haverford Arboretum and other arboretums. So you'll see a much wider expanse of our events. Where hopefully more people see them.
Great, great. Unfortunately, our student representative isn't here. There was an action item for her to see if she could advertise our eco-friendly yard program, which is basically residents would be awarded a flag that they could display on their front lawn demonstrating their adherence to zero pesticides and herbicides and reducing lawn square footage and replacement with native perennials, and if necessary, proper stormwater abatement. This would have been an effort that we want to reinvigorate this coming spring because I think it extends our overall concern about having our natural environment return to what it is intended to be and not what we as humans think it should be. The next item, I may be having items that are different order than in the.
Yeah, I'm not following you, I lost you.
No, here we go. The gas leaf blower phase out. Everyone here knows gas leaf blowers are polluting. I'd say in every sense. They are loud, they cause dust, and they pollute the air we breathe at a rate that no other fossil fuel powered engine does. So we are wanting to work with other townships in phasing out gas leaf blowers in our township, and as a first step to encouraging switch over to all electric lawn equipment, both residential and commercial. So you can imagine this will be a heavy lift, and we are considering as a first step to talk to our Public Works Department about the capabilities and cost of electric lawn equipment. But perhaps as a first step, and part of that would be to demonstrate to the Public Works and any interested residents the capabilities of electric lawn equipment, particularly lawn mowers, even the large commercial riding zero-turn lawn mowers. Just how long is their battery life? How many acres can you mow on one charge? So there are a variety of companies out there. Toro, Mean Green, John Deere, or Gravely all make, for example, commercial lawn equipment. And again, this is something that I would ask our EAC to vote on, to propose to the Department of Public Works. Would they be interested in?
Mr. Chairman, if I may comment?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but
Sure.
so our Public Works Director, Ricky Foster, I know has spent a considerable amount of time researching electric-powered, different types of equipment that you're referencing. I would offer maybe just to give an opportunity to him to maybe put some information together on what has been done.
Okay.
Because I know he has done some research already. We've been having internal conversations, not only about our vehicles, our fleet, but also, like I said, the equipment that they're utilizing within the parks as well. So I don't want to get into the details of what he's discovered, but I just wanted to make a comment that I know a lot of that has been underway.
Okay.
An interface going on with some different townships as well.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Tammy. I'll do that. I'll be in touch with Ricky. In that vein, I had a conversation with Kathy Agnew, our Board of Commissioners liaison, about this whole matter of gas leaf blowers, and she strongly encouraged that we have a public survey to get a feel for just how favorable the idea would be to phase out gas leaf blowers. And in fact, Springfield Township EAC has prepared a community survey that Aaron Stempelwitz of the EAC has been kind enough to share with us. And I offer it to my colleagues here as a preliminary look at this survey. My only concern about such a survey is that it will most likely be self-serving. Those in favor of a phase-out will respond, and those indifferent or opposed more likely not respond. So that's why I'm wanting to propose we talk with Ricky Foster and Department of Public Works about the possibility of purchase of electric lawnmowers and electric leaf blowers, and hopefully with their satisfaction demonstrate the utility of this equipment to the community. Much like we're upgrading the energy systems in our municipal buildings, these can be then poster children for demonstrating the benefits of fossil fuel usage reduction or elimination. So this is an ongoing discussion both within the EAC and with other departments.
I think the survey could, serve a couple of, besides giving us some information, rather than being totally self-serving, would also bring attention to the issue, that people could, see that it's something that's being addressed, whether they do it or not. It's sort of like
Kind of a preliminary
exactly.
Notification of the community.
Exactly.
Okay. Again, we can't fully discuss this idea. Have either of you done a township survey before? How we actually communicate it to?
No,
I think it was,
Shade Tree do one
no,
recently?
we do it, we did a survey on, was it on composting?
Right.
And
Did we?
was it a Survey Monkey or something, and did Donnell do it?
Donnell set that up.
So maybe we could see if Donnell would help set this up?
Yeah, great idea.
Right. Right. Thank you, Carol. This is another new item. Well, it is a new item that is still developing, and this is the Aronimink Golf Club clear-cutting 9 acres of mature, if not old-growth forest for purposes of a parking lot to serve the 2026 PGA tournament planned for their club. As you can imagine, there is much concern about the loss of forest habitat and also the potential for contamination of Darby Creek, which flows into Skunk Hollow with sedimentation and other debris from the cleared land during a rainstorm. the Newtown Township Board of Supervisors on December 9th, the chairman said that the proposal should actually go through a formal land development process, which is not what the club expected. And the hope is that this will proceed and it will hold the whole proposal to a higher level of management and oversight. So we have to watch that from their next meeting, which will be, I believe, in January, when the proposal is actually to be put up for approval. One thing that has developed is an EAC collaboration in public education that I put together with Joy Baxter of Haverford EAC. They have, like us, various presentations on environmental matters, and we're going to share our registration links to these various presentations between our EACs so that residents in both communities can listen at least to recordings, if not also the actual presentation of these various lectures. For example, Radnor, Haverford EAC has presentation on polyfluorinated alkyl substances, forever chemicals, on February 12th. Solar for your home on February 19th. A rain garden workshop on March 1st. EVE, electric vehicle ownership, on March 13th. Et cetera. So all of these will be listed in the minutes of this meeting.
Will they be on our website too? I'm confused about that. Is
Yes,
that what you're
yes.
saying?
We're
Okay.
going to share the registration links to these workshops. I've also made it clear to Joy that unlike theirs, which many of their presentations will be virtual, ours are going to have to be in person for the time being. So people will have to come to the Township building if they want to hear the presentation live. Expanding our activities in recycling and waste management in Radnor Township. Again, as in my announcements, there is a, through the December 13th Radnor Township Weekly newsletter, and link to a virtual tour of the Republic Services recycling facility. We've also offered to assist the township in implementing a community food waste composting program that would be awarded by the Delco Office of Sustainability through a USDA compost and food waste reduction program. So we're waiting for developments there to see if, in fact, Radnor Township would be awarded a participation in this USDA program. Promoting of use and generation of electricity from solar and wind sources. Note that we do have an EAC lecture already, Beginner's Guide to Solar, on the Township's EAC website. And again, also see the Solarize Delco webinar on February 19th at 7 p.m. It's going to be called Solar for Your Home through Haverford EAC. That'll be February 19th at 7 p.m. Let's see. Resident notification process for land development. This issue arose in August by a concerned resident on Spring Mill Road about tree clearing in her neighborhood in preparation for a subdivision. She was concerned already about flooding at the bottom of the hill of Spring Mill Road due to inadequate stormwater containment. And she was concerned that this subdivision would contribute to this process, to stormwater flooding. So I decided to get a quick study and learning about the notification, the resident notification process when a subdivision or land development proposal is placed on a certain property. And I had a November 25th teleconference with Township engineer and the Director of Community Development about this process. And I concluded that, yes, residents neighboring a proposed subdivision or land development are not formally notified of the proposal until a preliminary or final plan set up by the developer has been reached. However, residents concerned about the loss of shade trees and possible flooding may find their concerns are addressed upon hearing deliberations at the Planning Commission and Shade Tree Commission meetings, which develop out of the plan. Also, residents should review the sedimentation and erosion control plan and the stormwater management plan that is approved by the township and the county. Once notified of Planning Commission meetings, concerned residents should therefore read the meeting background material and be vigilant for recordings of relevant Shade Tree Commission meetings. So the onus, to a large extent, is on the resident to be aware of these plans. Admittedly, unlike some townships, our township does not post signs on the property notifying passersby of impending Planning Commission meetings or Shade Tree Commission meetings. This would, of course, inform a far larger number of people besides those living within 500 to 1,000 yards of the property, which is the current extent of notification. Maintenance of rain gardens in the township. I would pass on the mic to Tammy Cohen, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thank you. I appreciate the introduction there, Mr. Burnham. I actually have a presentation planned for this evening, so I'm going to ask Ian to just put the screen up here. I wanted to kind of dive right into the topic of rain gardens. I know this is a conversation that started, that came after some well-warranted community consternation as a result of the rain garden that was removed along Conestoga Road at Clemacrone Park. And you know, has sort of set off a domino effect of a discussion on this topic just across not only the Clemacrone Park, but also the rest of the park system. And something I really felt, you know, compelled to kind of jump in and talk more about just in general and find some solutions as we move forward. So first of all, what you're looking at here is just the aerial view of Clemacrone Park, notably, of course, up here. I don't know if the public's able to see my cursor. I don't think they're able to. But along Conestoga Road, you see I have a circle right in the area. And I'm going to show a bunch of pictures. But so that's the rain garden that we're talking about specifically. And that, of course, Ms. Winters was up and was speaking about just a few moments ago. So that's the Wren Rain Garden. I'll refer to it as that, Wren, REN, so Water Resources Educational Network. This was a grant that was obtained back in right around 2011, obviously implementation around 2012 of the rain garden. And it was due to a lot of work by a lot of community organizations. I know the Garrett Hill Enhancement Trust, the Garrett Hill Coalition, a lot of organizations were involved. The League of Women Voters, I know, were involved, and this grant actually came through a gateway through the League of Women Voters of PA. Resident Sarah Pilling, Paul Overbeck, the list goes on. There's a number of partners that were involved in this. So if we move just a bit here through the park, you'll see 3 other rain gardens. I think there's a way I can do a cursor somehow with a laser pointer. Here we go. I don't know if you can see that now a little bit. So these rain gardens here, deeper into the park, these came a few years later as a result of a major comprehensive renovation project that took place that renovated a number of pieces of infrastructure throughout the park, the basketball courts, the comfort station, et cetera. So as part of that project, which was a very big project that involved the community over the course of several years, it also included 3 more rain gardens that actually were funded as part of the project. So the township, actually spent money, did not get a direct grant for these rain gardens, even though the park in its totality received a DCNR grant and a DCED grant, which really were predicated on how the project was incorporating stormwater management, stormwater runoff, and one of the methodologies in how the park is doing that was not only through swales and regrading in certain areas to catch water coming from Rockingham and channeling, in different ways to make it down here to Valley Run, but also through rain gardens. So they were a big part of the project. So I wanted to kind of give a little bit of an aerial outline just so everybody kind of knows what we were talking about. As I mentioned, there were a lot of partners. So I'm not trying to put salt in the open wounds, but I wanted to kind of go back in time and actually show some pictures. This is really what happened. This is real life in 2012. I came into the director role in 2010. So I was still kind of fresh in my role when this project was taking place, and this was I believe the first major rain garden project that took place in the community. It was part of an Eagle Scout project as well for a resident of Troop 19. His name's Colin McCrossan. He's done a lot of other things throughout the township with Bishop Richard Allen Park. The Delaware Riverkeeper Network was involved. The Urban Stormwater Partnership was involved. As Roberta had mentioned, Villanova University. They were involved in scoping, design, just overall start to finish. So it really was a vast network of people. And then Mayfield Gardens at a discount, I know they provided, here's a picture, the approximate 35 yards of sand that was layered in to obviously fill the rain garden and serve as a major source of the infiltration ultimately. So I wanted to share these pictures because I think they're exciting, to what the community came together and did. They did it in one day, amazingly. And then if you look at this slide, so obviously finished project here in the upper left-hand corner, the day of the construction. And then a couple days later, Hurricane Sandy actually came through on Monday. Again, I had to go back in the history books to I wouldn't have remembered all of this, but the rain garden was in place and actually served to function. So really right away proved its worth and its benefit. And even today, if you walk out into the parking lot at Clemacrone, you'll see it pitch right in this direction. So there's a significant slope. I know we installed a new inlet along Conestoga Road as part of the park comprehensive park project we did in 2017, but you still get a number of, a big source of runoff coming off the parking lot. And what comes off of that also is oil, grease, sediment, and everything else. So, as we'll see later in some pictures of just the rain gardens across, even here at this building, there's a lot of maintenance that has to come on the backside. So here's another image just, showing, I guess this would have been a year later, showing, the growth of the species and everything that had been planted. And then, of course, the sign. This is an image of what the sign was that was located just there along Conestoga Road. that expressed not only the detail, the functionality of the rain garden, because as we know, education is part of this. Sometimes it serves as the backbone of why we receive grants, is so that we can further educate the community on the benefits, so that they can, consider implementing these types of things in their own personal lives, in their own personal, properties. But it also, expressed a lot of great information. So I know I have a message to the Public Works Department to see if we can find out where the sign went. In the future, I hope that we can reinstate this rain garden. I'll get to that in a moment. And maybe the sign can possibly make its way back. There were a lot of really great things that were planted, grasses that are absorbent, able to catch water runoff. I know that there was a pipe also that had been installed underneath. So if we kind of move on to the next picture. This is from 21, 22, but I know there was a pipe that was also installed underground here. I'm not sure if Public Works had removed that as well, but here's where the sign was located, expressed, like I said, the information about the rain garden and its functionality. But over time, so even though the rain garden wasn't maintained, meaning we weren't removing sediment on a regular basis, we weren't removing invasive species that start to creep up, I know in 2017, before we debuted and grand opened the project, where there was the renovation at Clemacrone, I know we had members of the community come back out, and they did some work in the rain garden. So it was probably more 2016 or midway through 2017, because we had the grand opening for the park in 2017 in September. So we know that there was some work that was done on it, but you can see that even though I would probably bet there's some invasives growing in here and just grasses that have creeped up, it was very green, and still, for all intents and purposes, doing its job. So this is what it looks like today. This was a picture from about a week ago when I was over there. Again, for folks that aren't aware, it was removed. I'm not sure how deep the depression, the depression that was originally created there, I believe was about 3 feet, if I'm not mistaken. When I was reading through the specifications, I'd go back and reorient myself to this. I'm not sure if the sand has been completely removed. I'm not sure to what level soils have been brought in on this. Again, communication with the Public Works Department and just understanding exactly what they did, I need to get caught up on. And as you can see, the trees, the saplings that were installed there, or planted there rather, I know our arborist was involved in the planting, so I have to believe that they would be absorbent type species. But by the same token, if the sand is still within the soils, not necessarily conducive to tree growth. So something I think we definitely want to take a look at. So where are we right now? So I've met with a few different firms to come out, landscape firms, to take a look at this and say, like, how can we get this back? I'd like to see it. I'd like to see what happened, back in 2012 be something that we have a contractor come in and do. I certainly wouldn't ask the residents to come back out and redig it and try and reinstall this. So I also don't want to remove the trees if they can function. Maybe they need to be relocated if they can't and the soil still contains the sand composition. But I met with a couple firms. I'm trying to get some pricing. I would love to see what we could do to reestablish the rain garden in this area. I think it's really important. It's a high visibility area, and not only that, but the functionality is really critical. As we kind of looked at, there's a lot of stormwater that comes running off of this area. So I'm working through a scope and pricing right now to see what we can do to try and get it back. Obviously some questions we need to answer first to see what the composition looks like, to see if there's still a pipe, that's there to catch and release. But that's the township's goal. So we want to try to figure this out in some way. So in addition to that kind of takes us to the other 3 rain gardens in the park that, as I had mentioned, were part of the park renovation project. So I just numbered them accordingly, just so we can kind of reference them, because one does function as a direct catch through, there's water that's coming through this area. Kind of catches through here. There's a slope coming off the back of those properties along Rockingham, and there's a large swale trench that runs through this area. So catching within Rain Garden 1, and then funneling through its process, of course, to Rain Garden 2, which is how it was designed, and then through an outfall this way that goes towards Valley Run. So there is an underground pipe system, which you could see if you're there at the park. They're exposed. So when the rain garden fills to a certain level, and we checked the pipes today, they seem like they're clear. There's 3 of them that go underneath the pathway here and funnel right into Rain Garden 2, so that if the Rain Garden 1 does fill up to a certain level, it will spill into 2. So there was some controversy of these after the park was constructed. I believe Ms. Winters had referred to that as far as the functionality. I know there was a lot of questions. So the township actually did end up working through litigation on this project. There was some claims about compacted soils that happened during construction, where pieces of equipment were run through Rain Garden, I believe 2 specifically, that could have led them to not being able to infiltrate properly. So long story short, like, that's all behind us at this point. I know we did a study in 2020 to kind of understand what the current functionality is of them. And you know, right now the problem is they're so filled with a buildup of sediment, a buildup of invasive species. We also have some trees that have populated through there through a natural process, as well as some that I think had been planted. I know there's some river birches that are on the perimeter, and inside there's 2, there's several willows. I was trying to go back through the design plan to see exactly what was planted, to kind of make a determination if maybe those were part of the planting plan, or if they just happened as a result of nature, which sometimes can be a combination of both. So I know there's red maples in there, there's sweet gums in there. We can still see the perennials. So the perennials that were planted, and the sedges and things like that, there's still remnant of them there. Cattails, things like that, you can see them growing within there. So I think with some maintenance, if we can get a contractor to come in, and again, this would be all predicated on a proposal. What does it cost? You know, how do we want to move forward? Could be ultimately something that the Board of Commissioners would have to vote on if it's a certain threshold of cost. But if we can get in there and take a look and see if we can, you know, remove invasives, remove sediment. I know there's a significant amount of leaves in there right now, and try and recover what is there. There was quite a hardy investment. When I went back and looked, we had about 1,500 plugs between those 3 rain gardens that we had placed in there at the time of the park's construction and development. So considerable investment. I know there were some trees planted on the perimeter in this area. And, you know, I think if we can try and uncover that over time, a lot of those things that were planted could take shape. So I wouldn't necessarily want to rip everything out and start over. I don't think that's where we're at. I think we have a great investment. I think we, with a little bit of time, can go in and do some work. And hopefully, it's not going to be right away, but if those planted species, significant amount of seeds within there, if they could take shape and be given an opportunity to where they're not being suffocated by leaves and, you know, invasives, that maybe they can thrive, and we can get these back to functionality. Now, one of the things I will say is that if you were at the park, probably right around when this image was taken, I don't know exactly when it was, but it probably was sometime, you know, maybe spring, because you can see everything is so green. You have trees growing within here, as I had mentioned. There's willows, there's the red maples, the sweet gums. There's a lot of trees growing. And so one of our goals with the park was to have the sight line back into the tennis courts and the basketball courts, so you could see from the parking lot all the way back into the linear nature of this park. Just, again, general safety. So one of the recommendations I might have as part of it is to maybe selectively remove some of those. And by taking them out, it can allow some of the other species to potentially thrive. Now, I know removing trees is not a fun topic, so I want to kind of go through it delicately, because we have trees that have, come to fruition amazingly. I mean, they're flourishing. But then, I have concern just as a Parks and Rec director, when our police drive through the parking lot, I'd like them to be able to see to the back of the park also, to see what's going on at the tennis court, see what's going on at the basketball court. So, we might have to have a little bit more conversation with that. So again, just waiting on a proposal there. This is just an aerial shot. We did a drone flyover at one point in time. I think this was from 2017. So I just wanted to kind of show some of these were, filled and holding water, and I think we had a lot of concerns from the residents. And that's where it kind of tied to the functionality. And keep in mind, in 2017, they were new, so there wasn't a lot of growth at that point. And then I also don't know what the profile of the storms were at that time. So, and as you know, rain gardens are supposed to hold water and then slowly disperse. So I think, we want to kind of experiment with this, put some time into it. Unfortunately, in having a conversation with our Public Works Director, our current park maintenance staff does not have the bandwidth to take this on. So all of the work that would go into these 4 rain gardens, unfortunately, would have to be a contract. So once we get that proposal, we look at it, try to rework it to something that we think is manageable, there could be a possibility that, we can, try and figure out through our operating budget if we can make this happen. So that would be my goal, is at least let's find out what it's going to cost. Now we can do questions here. I'm going to move on in a minute to the Township building, so if we want to stay on Clemacrone, we certainly can. I do want to address the rain gardens here at the Township building as well. And also, so a couple things. First of all, so here's this sort of like reset, right? That's going to be vital, but then we've got ongoing maintenance. Like a rain garden we've installed it, and it just is there and it does its thing. So admittedly, there's been a disconnect. So we complete the project in 2017, realizing there's obviously we had a litigation issue here. But if we even go back to the rain garden, so I don't know what the agreement was after we installed these things with residents or within even our own structure. What are we going to do with them? Like, what is the plan? I know that bandwidth is consistently an issue among our park maintenance staff. We have so much space to maintain. I think communication is really necessary, but we installed these, and they really, I hate to say it, but they became abandoned. There was no work being done, and I think that through a network, if it's working with the EAC, working with the community, we know we've got great groups out there like Radnor Conservancy. Scouts are always looking for projects. I just had a call with a scout before I came into this meeting on an Eagle Scout project. So we know that there's never a shortage of folks to step up and want to do work in Radnor and help us. So I think we have to have a comprehensive plan, and then it just ties to leadership within our staff to try and make that happen. And we are thin, we are lean. How can we do that? And then of course, looking ahead to future projects, and I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole, but we have to, if we're going to install any type of stormwater BMP, we need to be able to be prepared to what the future looks like with it. And can we take that on? Because maybe we need to modify in some of our upcoming projects that we have that are coming up, like Odoricio. We're looking at a renovation there. Fenimore Woods, we're renovating there. Maybe there are some different considerations that we have to make if we don't have the ability to take on the maintenance that's required thereafter, because it doesn't go away. There's a lot more at the onset, of course, because there's got to be a constant evaluation, discerning what needs to be removed, what doesn't, especially as things are growing. So once the natives come up and they take shape, they can dominate. But the first year, second year, that's where the risk of the invasives coming through and really overrunning these spaces. And something just as simple now as letting leaves blow into the rain garden, that's a lot of work to pull all of that out of there. And it's not like you're gonna go through with a rake and just rake it all out, because you don't wanna risk that of which is thriving. So there's a lot of handwork, it's very intricate. But like I said, maintenance thereafter is gonna be something that I'm also requesting from some of the groups that I've met with to understand, if we get them to a certain point, what is it gonna cost to maintain them then thereafter? Understanding that the township may not have the ability to take that on. So I know that's a lot to unpack, and I apologize. But like I said, I really feel compelled that I think we can get back to a better state with these rain gardens. It's just gonna take us a little bit of time, and unfortunately, it's gonna be an investment to get there at this point.
Excuse me, Tammy, I have a question. Can we not pursue or investigate grants that will cover that maintenance? Or partially, or for X number of years? Once we have a proposal, it'll cost, I'm totally making this up, $5,000 a year to maintain these. Can we go for grants?
We can. The thing we have to keep in mind with grants too is that someone has to write the detail of the grant, and that generally ends up falling on a contractor or myself or a public works director. Melissa Kahn does a great job of administrating the grant, but when there's a scope of work detail that has to go into that, some grants are very simple and it's easy, some are very detailed. So I think they're certainly possible, and grants are consideration in everything that we do. So without a doubt, that would be something within reach, and sometimes we have groups that help us too. So I think going back to the Wren grant, if I'm not mistaken, I think members of the community wrote that grant. I don't believe the township actually wrote that grant. We probably administrated it. We put the township name on it and the code and all that stuff and filled in the fields, but the backbone of it is a narrative, is a scope of work that is usually very detailed, and usually is the backbone of the time. So that sort of happens through a myriad of different ways.
I have one other quick question. You mentioned that when they did fill up, I think you mentioned that when they were filled up, the neighbors were not happy with that. Was it concern about, safety? Was it concern about mosquitoes? I mean, what were their concerns when they did seem to be working?
There were concerns. So if you go there now, instead of seeing snow fencing, like, again, this image is from 2017. This would have been shortly after Park project had its grand opening. So now we have post and rail fence that surrounds each of the rain gardens for safety purposes. So functionality as well, because of right off the basketball court, we saw the ball bouncing into the water a lot. And some of it, so I think it's, there's concern obviously for mosquitoes and, safety because of, you could see there's standing water there that looks considerable. So I think some of it's education. If we can educate on, the functionality, and I think some of it had to do with just overall time. Again, I think once more of the natives take over within these spaces, within, each of these rain gardens, as long as they're functioning properly, then they have an opportunity at that point to not hold as much water at once. Now, obviously, we get considerable storms if we're in a pattern where we're just getting a ton of rain, like I think we did when we debuted the South Wayne parking lot. We had, a barrage of storms, one after another. There's not going to be anything we can do about that. But I think, we've got to try to get to a better spot with these.
You want to start?
I had a couple of other things. Well, Clement Crowe, no, I was going to just move on to Enki, or the township building, but
Okay.
absolutely, Roberta.
I want to thank Tammy for all the work and time she's put into this project. It also seems to me that Villanova University, because of their excellent reputation in stormwater, would be able to perhaps provide some assistance in this area, and maybe a graduate student would like to do something for his thesis on how to maintain rain gardens, because I think it's going to be a more pressing concern in the future. And I would just like to also raise the issue that, as I believe Tammy is aware, that people who are developing get special consideration if they do put in rain gardens to handle stormwater issues, that with that special consideration also includes perhaps an ongoing fee they pay so that the rain gardens are periodically inspected and cleaned so that they remain their functionality for perpetuity, as opposed to working when they are installed and then nobody ever looks at them again. So I think it's not just the township, which I'm delighted Tammy has taken a lead on, but I think it's every resident who has a rain garden or similar mitigation provided to them so that development is allowable in places where it would not be, have a commitment for the long term to keep them maintained and functioning. The other thing I wanted to mention that Tammy didn't mention, and maybe she's not aware of it, is in the process of snow removal, piles of snow were pushed into the rain garden at one point in time and disrupted it considerably, and the stones and things had to be pulled out, replaced, because there were stones pushed all on top of the vegetation that created another problem, and as a result, you can see in some of the pictures there were like white rails now, they've white, I don't know what you call them, barriers of some sort, currently existing where they put those trees. Do you see those? There were huge rocks. Do you see those 3 or 4 huge rocks? There were rocks like that placed all along the edge of the pavement to prevent snow plows and other equipment pushing debris into the rain garden and perhaps not making it as functional as it should have been. And I think those things, I know a member of the community helped clean up some of those, the rock debris that was pushed in there from storms, but those things happen, and again, that's why I'm imploring you to work to help educate and maintain the education of those who work on our grounds, because as Tammy said, they're stretched very thin, they have a lot to do. But I think prevention is better than reacting, which is where I was. Thank you, Tammy.
Thank you, Roberta. And just to kind of go back, because I just wanted to refer to the day of installation picture up in the upper left. So there was a lot of stone that was there that acts as a layer, obviously to help infiltrate, slowly release down through the sand. The sand would be below that through the water. But I appreciate the comment you made about that, because I was not aware of the snow removal piece to what was happening here. You know, I think it just ties to communication, education. I know earlier you referenced about the no-mow zone area and the signs. I have no idea where those signs went. I don't know if we removed them during the time of the project. I don't know if someone else removed them within Public Works. That's unfortunate, especially if those areas were designated to be no-mow zone areas. I mean, having no-mow zones was I could have another 30-minute spot on that, because that is another goal of mine, is to kind of get to more, no-mow, meadowed areas, reforested areas. Just it ties to comprehensive planning, but it's just a matter of education, communication, and at the end of the day, it's less to maintain. So it's less time in the park running the mower, running a trimmer. I think we just internally are going to have to, have more conversation on that. As a matter of fact, I had mentioned to the township manager and the public works director, just, as a result of our discussions tonight on this, we're talking internally about meadows and perennials and reforestation, obviously, with a significant amount of tree planting because of the efforts now that the Shade Tree Committee is really stepping up and doing, solar lighting. I know we're looking at, solar lighting plan potentially for the willows, but I think we need to consider having like a parks conservation and sustainability coordinator on staff. This is great stuff. I know just a little bit of time I've been able to dig into some of these pieces. Somebody that can, interface with the EAC, interface somehow, just so that we're all on the same page. Like earlier, I know you guys were talking about the gas-powered leaf blowers. Like that's something we're working on. So having, those discussions offline so that we're all on the same page, I think would be great. But also a staff member, though, that, can kind of oversee and coordinate a lot of these things, coordinate community volunteers and efforts, be the grant coordinator. I've wrote many grants for parks because that's my area of expertise. So somebody who has an area of expertise on conservation sustainability, they'd be excited to sit and write a scope of work, for a couple of hours and put that together and maybe get a significant grant. Educating the public works staff, making sure that they're all on the same page. Projects, strategic, being sort of behind strategic planning. You guys had mentioned about the composting program. I know I'm very familiar with Haverford's program that they have and the grants that they have. All of those communities, though, they have staff members. They have a team of people dedicated to this. So I think that's really going to be vital. Unless there's a way creatively we can take the people we have and educate them and give them that background and that education so that they can take a lot of that on. Recycling is another thing in our parks that, we're falling short on as well. So I know it's difficult because it's hard to get folks to follow that, but, over time, we've got to have, ways and methods of implementing that, and it all comes, I believe, with strategic planning. So I can move real quick into the ones
please.
here at the Township building. I just wanted to kind of, just really quick, we have 3 rain gardens here at the Radnor Township building, one of which that was part of a community effort right here in the entrance drive when you come in off of Ivan Avenue onto Creek Drive. This was a community project with members of the Radnor Conservancy. I believe members of the EAC were involved in this also. I think I saw Dan Meyer in one of our pictures. I think he was a former member, if I'm not mistaken. I might be wrong. Parks Board members took part in it. As well as some other residents from the community. And then we have 2 that we invested into when we renovated the township parking lot. So these 2 were engineered similar to what we did at Clemacrone by an actual firm. So if we take a closer look, like this was the volunteer day where we had a mix of the natives that were planted. Again, this is the one that's on the entrance, right at the entrance drive. When you come up, you probably can't see it because it's so overrun right now with, I think there's like thistle and, just all kinds of stuff that has just completely overtaken it. So that's another one that I've also met with some of these firms to take a close look at to see if they can help us get to a reset. One of the other issues is, you can see, and this is the same rain garden, is the sedimentation. So all of this rock that here, I have to believe, didn't just wash away. This is just sediment that has run off of the driveway. Obviously vehicles, grease, all that kind of compounds in this area, and then you see the grass just coming over it. So these are the other 2. I'm not sure what this is that's growing here. I just know that we cut it like a hedge, and that was definitely not the original intent. So as we look ahead to some of these, and in here there is a pipe that's installed. So I believe that it's trenched to go under the parking lot. And I need to look at the engineering plans in a little bit more detail, but it was intended to run right in, go down under the parking lot down here and right into the stream. So we've got to figure out a way to get these invasives out of here. I know the township has, we utilize an alternative treatment method, so we're gonna have to figure out how we can get rid of them. Might have to rely on manual removal, but I know sometimes that just isn't always gonna work. And then reseed with a mix, plant it with plugs, height appropriate, obviously. This gets so big, I think you have a sightline issue when you're trying to pull out the township parking lot. So height appropriate is gonna be essential, you know, whether it's sedges and things like we did at Macrone. And then just, it's gonna have to, you know, have time to make sure that those natives take over so that we don't end up in a situation like this again, and kind of get to a better spot. So I'll stop right there. And the only other thing I would say is just moving forward, you know, with other park projects, as a result of what we learn here, we have to take better considerations to like, what can we manage? Because my next slide was actually about Odoricio Park. We're planning a comprehensive improvement project there. We are looking at stormwater BMPs. The last thing I want to do is go have a design firm engineer this wonderful rain garden, you know, with a whole list of planting species and come in and spend, you know, tens of thousands of dollars to install it and then have no way to maintain it. So, and you guys are probably familiar with the West Wayne Preserve, and we did a really good job over there. We do have a maintenance plan, and there's a maintenance contract on that I believe goes for 5 years. So it gives an opportunity. That was built into the project plan. So those are the considerations that we're gonna have to make. So I think it's just gonna come down to just a lot of communication and strategic planning across the board.
Tammy, I have another question or two. I'll be very quick. Do you know, just off the top of your head, roughly, how many currently healthy, not healthy, effective, not effective rainwater parks or spots there are in the township?
So there's the 4 at Clemacrone, well, 3, because the one was completely removed, but so in you know, there were 4, and hopefully we get back to 4, and then there's the 3 here. On township land and parkland, those are the only ones that I'm aware of that we have. Now, I know Steve Norsini, who is our township engineer, you guys were talking about stormwater management projects earlier. He's the king there to have that discussion, you know, on all those projects. I know we've incorporated stormwater management plans with different types of BMPs. I'm not aware of any other rain gardens, though, not in parks. And if so, I'm just having a brain moment that I just forgot. But those are the only ones that I know of, so there would be 6 total.
Tammy, my EAC colleagues will probably curse me out for this question. Is there a simple way to handle runoff that doesn't involve plants? Basically, have your pit with an absorbent medium like sand with a outlet, however you design it. But on top of that, a water permeable fabric, and on top of that, large stones. So the water permeable fabric would be right at the surface. You wouldn't have stones that would be more than 1 layer thick of stones. So there'd be hopefully easier to clean out and less chance of anything growing on those stones. So it's not going to be a pretty stormwater management construction, but it may be something that requires less maintenance.
I just wanted to go back to the slide. Again, this is the rain garden from 2012. So there was a layer, so there was a trench that was dug. The depression, I think it went down 3 or 4 feet, if I remember correctly. So it was a depression. Actually, no, this says shallow depression. I thought it was about 3 feet.
But the point is,
in any case,
you're having a catchment
Yes.
basin of sand or something that
Yes.
retains the water
yes.
for it to slowly seep out.
Right, so I mean, I really believe this rain garden here was a model for what that had entailed. And so then there was also a layer of geotextile fabric, I think that's what you were referring to.
Okay.
That was layered within there to help keep the weeds down for weed control. I've used it in my house, it doesn't always work, so there's still maintenance that goes into it.
Right.
But as far as alternatives, if that's where you were going, Even just a simple rock bed,
Yeah,
like a dry stream, I kind of hear them referred to that, or like, I guess, maybe French drain is what it's kind of
Right.
referred to as.
Okay.
I know at Fenimore, we're looking at, we have an area at Fenimore Woods where the parking lot has a trench that it has created that runs towards the pond from the upper parking lot. And in order to fix that, one of the, the first thing that comes out is, oh, we'll put a rain garden here. And it's like, we can't do any more rain gardens. So that immediately was a hard no, because we're at the point of scope of work for that project. So we are looking at doing like a rock bed
okay.
to funnel and catch. Now, whether or not we layer sand within that would definitely be a consideration.
Okay.
I'm
So-
not sure if that answers your question.
Well, in terms of maintenance, a rock bed with a sandy basin underneath the rock bed, would that be something you think would easier to maintain than a classical rain garden with perennial plantings on top?
It might be, but it doesn't look pretty.
Yeah, I think it defeats half the purpose too, of,
Right.
keeping the soil healthy and planting plants for pollinators and just simply the microbes that are in, certainly cheaper, but
So
so ugly.
if we just go back to 2022, this is what the rain garden looked like. 2021, 2022, somewhere in that range. This is what the rain garden looked like. And this was just, a lot of this was just the grass. I don't know how much this was native, but a lot of this was just the grass. I'm sure a lot of it was just, again, grass growing. It still looked nicer. It still looked nice. And it still did its job because it's, slowing what's coming off the parking lot. So, I mean, I'm a big fan of making it green in some way. I think dry streams and rock beds have their place as a BMP. I'm sure there's a lot of, things that we can look at in terms of, swales and things like that. Swales aren't pretty either, though. We have swales through Clemacrone Park. In fact, there's one I saw today that's holding water like a rain garden. So that's something we're gonna look at fixing also within this scope of work, in looking to get these rain gardens reestablished. So swales look, they kind of have a look too, and they fill with water and can be swampy, but they're doing their job, but they don't look pretty. Do you want to come up to the mic so folks at home can hear you? Did I go too
No.
far? I did, sorry.
Yep.
I was just going to mention, if you looked at the original Clemacrone Park layout, there are stones along the edge there. Do you see them? And those places where there are plants were supposed to be vegetated. That was part of the plan. So, and what happened is there is supposed to be green there and plants there, and the stones help to keep that in place. But
And
as I said,
infiltrate.
when the snow plows came in, they took those stones with them, which made it very difficult, because they pushed them into the vegetative areas, and so it lost some of its functionality, although it was working.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, one more item before we adjourn. Is Beth Yates is a candidate for joining this EAC, and she is scheduled to be reviewed and hopefully appointed at the Board of Commissioners' January 6th meeting. Sven Dethlef's candidacy, I don't know what the current status is. So we hopefully, by sometime in the first quarter, we'll have both members
I think
joining
he
us.
told me he was also meeting with him in January,
Okay, I just saw an email from Melissa mentioning Bess, but
but I could be,
let's hope
maybe it
it's
got
both of
changed.
them. All right, thank you for all attending and public comment.